Hey there photography friends, my name is Henry and on this YouTube channel I share the behind the scenes of my photography adventures.
Look what landscape photography does to us.
Some tips and tricks.
Then we've got the line coming in.
And of course, a little bit of banter.
Get a look at that.
Currently releasing one video per day over the Advent period. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit that little notification bell so that you don't miss any of these uploads. Now let's get into today's video.
So good afternoon, fellow photographers, ladies and gents. Thank you very much for tuning in, as always. So we're heading up these hills for the sunset. Conditions, you could probably even tell here, are looking fantastic. It's another beautiful winter's day here in the Lake District. And in today's video, I want to talk about something that we all strive for. 5 tips on how to get sharp images, pin sharp images. This is something that I've worked on over the past several years to the point where now I feel like I'm getting the sharpest images possible with the gear that I'm using. Can't forget the gloves because it's freezing. So for sunset this evening, we're heading up to a fell called Beacon Fell, and up there is so much interest. There's a tarn up there called Beacon Tarn. There's loads of crags and incredible views back up towards the Coniston Fells, which is sort of in that direction there. So we're going to have the elements for some good photographs. As I've said, the conditions are lovely. There's enough cloud up in the sky that, fingers crossed, will catch fire and we'll get some colour up there, but all of that remains to be seen. So let me get straight into it. Let's talk about the first tip that I would tell anybody to do in order to try and maximise their chances of getting pin sharp photographs. Now this first tip, admittedly, is a little bit of a weird one because I haven't been doing this myself recently, and that is to use a tripod. It comes with a bit of an asterisk, this one, to be honest, because it's absolutely not 100% necessary. You can get pin sharp photographs handheld without a tripod, of course you can. But the reason I wanted to mention it is because I think back to when I was first getting into photography, how much the tripod helped me to slow down and apply some of the other techniques that I'll talk about in this video in order to get sharp photographs. And ultimately, the tripod will make your camera dead still, as opposed to, you know, handheld, where you might think that you're really still, but there's always going to be little micro movements going on, you know. So I think overall, good advice is, if you haven't got a tripod and you're wanting to improve the sharpness of your photographs, definitely get one. The sturdier the better. I don't want people going out and spending tons of money, but brilliant asset in order for you to slow down, apply some of the techniques, like I said, I'm going to talk about in this video, and ultimately get sharper photographs. Oh wow, what an incredible view we're getting already. We're only about 10 minutes into the walk, looking back towards Coniston Water, and then from left to right, look at this, back to the Coniston Fells. We've got the Old Man of Coniston, Wetherlam, then right off in the distance we can actually see Helvellyn. Then we've got Fairfield, Black Crag a little bit closer to us, just at the end of Coniston Water there, right the way around to Red Screes. That is some big names right there, incredible. So I'm going to keep on moving. I was thinking about maybe taking a photograph in this direction, but it really is one of them, I feel, where beautiful view, lovely to look at, but I don't think there's a photograph there. But yeah, we'll keep moving on, and hopefully soon enough I'll find a photograph to take where I can talk about tip number 2, because this is a big one. There's one of my old friends there, look, a dog poo bag. What is the matter with people, man? So there's a little bit of a fork in the path here. This one that is clearly the most prominent path actually takes us in the wrong direction. We need to take I can't even see it, man. Can't even see it. Just, yeah, there we go. Faint little path here through the grasses, and this is going to take us up towards the beacon and the tarn. It's called the beacon. I think I might have called it Beacon Fell earlier, which I don't think it's ever been referred to as Beacon Fell. Probably has at some point, but that is wrong. Even though it would make sense, it's called the beacon, and it's a wonderful vantage point. I can't wait to show it to you. Right, through the grasses, the sun is beautiful. Oh, can you see that little tree there? Can you see it? Oh, I think there might be a little shot there, you know. That is a beautiful little tree. Wow. So our little path, you may be able to see, just near the lovely telegraph pole actually, just jumps up through them little crags there. So I've come off piste just slightly, just to get a little bit of a better perspective on this tree and this, well, it's a bit more of a vista, you know. It's one of those compositions that's developed a little bit more as I've taken time to just, well, slow down and compose the photograph with a little bit of purpose. But yeah, it's really nice. In fact, I can show you exactly what I'm going for. So if you look up on the screen there, you will see that something along those lines is going to be the image. So tree on the left hand side, far left hand side, and then we can see a little strip of Coniston Water, which I really like, and we've got Peel Island down there as well. What I love, even just looking at it there, this is, you know, obviously not a processed photograph, just the like silver sheen or glare that we're getting from the water. It is beautiful. And then Fairfield, the sort of dome shaped sort of curve off in the background, is just dead center. Absolutely beautiful. I suppose the only shame is, if I was being fussy, is, well, the light's a little bit harsh and there's not really that much interest in the clouds. Now, as for the tip, oh, look at this, another stunning telegraph pole there, man. What am I doing photographing trees and mountains when I've got these stunners around about the gaff? So tip number 1 was all about using a tripod. So I thought tip number 2 had to be something to do with photographing handheld, because I am aware 100% not everybody wants to use a tripod. Not everybody has a tripod, but there are still things you can do. There are still techniques shooting handheld that can really maximize your chances of getting sharper photographs. And this one really is about how you hold your camera when you're shooting handheld. So first things first, use the viewfinder. Don't be using the LCD screen like that away from your body. You know, these are all micro movements, so you might not even realize it, but if you're holding your camera out like that, it's much more difficult to hold it still. Where if you've got it pressed to your eye and then get your elbows tucked in to your chest, it's almost like you've got 3 points of contact. Sounds daft, but I do this. Take a deep breath and then hit the shutter button really gently. And then I think this might be the most important part of everything. If you've got time, as long as you're not chasing the light and things are daft, check your preview on the back of your camera. Take 10 seconds to get your preview up, and then just on my camera here on the Z7, I can just double tap, and then yeah, just make sure that it's sharp. Really, really important. Another thing you can do as well is actually to pop your camera off the single shot mode and put it in continuous high shooting. I don't really do this that often because I feel quite competent when I'm shooting handheld that it's going to be sharp, and I always do the check like I just said. But if you put it in continuous high, do everything like I said. I'm going to focus on that tree, and if you just listen, see how it's just taking dozens of photographs. You know, you're heightening your chance that one of them is going to be sharp if you're moving around ever so slightly. So that's another good tip. Like I said, I don't really do it that often, but yeah, it can definitely help. Hopefully this is a nice image. Oh, and hopefully it's sharp. That is absolutely gorgeous. Oh, what a stunner. So we're not too far from the hill now. This is beautiful, man. There's not a breath of wind. And I know some people might think this is all really bland, but oh man, this is my type of landscape. Bland, colourless, craggy, and we have got beautiful skies. Things are looking really good for the sunset. Now, on to tip number 3, because yeah, this one's probably a little bit of a weird one, and I think it might be a bit contrasting, but please understand these are things that have worked for me from my experience. But the same as the tripod on tip number 1, this one also comes with a massive asterisk. So the third tip to try and get the sharpest possible photographs is actually to apply digital sharpening in post-production. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. You should not be relying on a tool in post-processing to get the best quality images, to get the sharpest images. And I agree with you 100%, and that is the massive asterisk on this one. Do not rely on it for the sharpness of your photographs. That's not what it's designed for. It's designed to slightly enhance the quality of your raw file, or the sharpness of your raw file, obviously. But use it sparingly. That's probably a second little asterisk. Do not overdo it. It's all subjective to a certain degree, but if you start pushing that sharpening slider too far to the right, things are going to start looking a little bit sickly. Now, a couple of things to mention with this one. Firstly, this is interesting. Like I've said, everything's from my own experience. I do digitally sharpen every single one of my photographs. In fact, for the most part, Lightroom actually does it automatically. If you look down at the bottom of all of the panels on the right hand side, you'll probably notice that it's sharpening your photographs anyway, and usually I just leave it at that. However, recently I purchased a program. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, I was just interested, called Topaz Labs Photo AI, and you know what, it's actually pretty good. So yeah, the clue's in the name. It uses artificial intelligence to actually sharpen your photographs, but again, you can't rely on it. You need to get your images right out on location. But the reason I wanted to mention is I just think it's like a tiny bit better than just, like, say, the standard sharpening tool in Lightroom. And yeah, honestly, I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I bought the program recently. It was on like a bit of a Black Friday sale, so I'm probably telling you about it too late. But don't be going out and buying the program and expecting your photos to be like well sharp all of a sudden. But yeah, it's actually pretty cool. It can fix images that have got a slight little bit of motion blur, or images that are a tiny bit out of focus. Obviously not anything too extreme, but I was quite impressed with it. I'll put maybe an example up on the screen there where you could see the difference between, you know, the image that wasn't particularly very sharp and the one where the photo AI actually amended it. Sometimes it's pretty good. But yeah, again, you can't rely on it, but digital sharpening in general, like I said, is something that I do with every single photograph. And in fact, it's an important part of my workflow with my raw files. I can't on one hand tell you, oh, don't rely on it too much and all that, and then on the other hand tell you I'm using it for every single image. Play around with it a little bit. It will definitely, as it's designed, increase the sharpness of your photographs. Just use it sparingly. You can't beat the classic farmer on a quad bike bouncing around the gaff with a couple of border collies on the back. Ah, quality. Right, look at this. It's getting really lovely and craggy now. This is exactly what I had in mind. I'm just thinking about foreground. Oh, look at all this heather. It's like lost all its colour obviously, but this would have been wonderful around like September time, August, something like that. Oh, and just in time to show you, look at that lovely vista of the Coniston Fells there in the background. So I think we're up here. That is the beacon. Now, I'm not necessarily going to just stand at the top and take photographs up there, but yeah, just kind of like mull about this area here. See what happens with this light. I might go this way actually for now. I have to be honest with you here, but I completely forgot about Beacon Tarn. It just exited my mind. I don't know what's gone on there. So I kind of came down this little hill here and saw it, and I was kind of like taken aback. I was like, whoa, that's so beautiful. And yeah, then I was like, oh yeah, it's Beacon Tarn, of course. That's a nice little bonus, isn't it? So I just wanted to take a quick opportunity to say thank you for watching the video. I hope you're enjoying my little Advent series here, where I'm doing one video every single day throughout Advent, where I'll be sharing a few tips and tricks like in today's video, and just generally all things landscape photography, mostly out with our cameras on adventures taking photographs. So if you are enjoying it, please consider hitting the old subscribe button and hit the little bell icon, which will give you a notification when I release my new videos, which at this stage is day by day. But all in all, thank you so much for your support. Any comments down below will be read and I appreciate it so much. You're all incredible. Thank you. So on to tip number 4 on how to try and get the sharpest possible photographs. And this one is mostly another sort of handheld tip, but there are instances where I think you should apply this when you're using a tripod. I'll get into that in a second. But as for the photograph, I'm zooming right in at 200mm back towards, we've got Doe Crag and Brown Pike back there, pretty much dead in the centre of the Coniston Fells. So I'm missing out the old man of Coniston himself on the right hand side. I prefer the sort of middle section as they're a lot craggier. So this tip number 4, is all about your settings, and mostly your aperture, and more importantly, your shutter speed. Do not be shooting at slow shutter speeds. It sounds really simple and basic, but a slow shutter speed might be 1/50th of a second. It might be 1/80th of a second. Firstly, it depends on your camera. Do a few tests, see what the slowest shutter speed is, you know, that you're comfortable shooting at handheld. And then secondly, it depends on the person. I think I mentioned this before when we were talking about bracing yourself when you're shooting handheld. You know, you might think you're holding the camera really still, but you're probably not, honestly. So as a general rule, I will always double the focal length, and then that is my shutter speed. So for example here, I'm in at 200mm. I will not shoot anything longer than 1/400th of a second, if I can help it. So if that means increasing my ISO a little bit, if that means opening up my aperture a little bit, I will do that. For me, shutter speed has to be the priority. It is the most important setting when I'm shooting handheld and I'm trying to get a sharp photograph. Now, I also mentioned, I think, that this can be really important even if you're using a tripod. And the sort of rare instance, if you will, is when it's windy. If it's windy, you might have the best, heaviest, sturdiest tripod in the world, but the wind's going to be wobbling your tripod around. So even in those instances when I've got the camera attached to a tripod, I will make sure I'm getting a quicker shutter speed. Again, just to freeze any motion as your camera's just wobbling around a little bit. In fairness, I reckon this should probably be the most important one in this video, because it's probably the most common one that I see with other photographers when I'm doing workshops and things like that, is people that are shooting at too slow of a shutter speed, handheld or on a tripod that's wobbling. It's probably the most common way that your photographs are getting a little bit blurry and are not sharp. Basically, open up your aperture if you need to let more light into your sensor. Or, probably more importantly, make sure you're prioritizing getting a quick shutter speed. So I'm actually shooting this image in a monochrome. I just think it suits it a little bit better. The sky is actually really nice, and I just love the crags and like the form of the mountain. Very sort of pointed and craggy, for want of a better word. But yeah, I think it looks really cool as a black and white. It's nice to have my bag down here and all this sheep poo. So we're still about 40 minutes until the sunset, but I don't know what's going to happen because it seems like there's a lot of cloud on the horizon, and I've just got a feeling that it's going to be one of them where the sun's going to dip down behind all of that cloud, and that's going to be it. So I'm going to grab a shot now whilst the light is really nice, looking back down towards Beacon Tarn. And this is going to be the perfect opportunity for me to talk you through this technique. And what this is using the LCD screen, the live view, either through the viewfinder, if you could do that on a mirrorless camera like I can, or on your LCD screen. And what I do is I have the OK button on my Nikon Z7 set to magnify in. So obviously I'm not zooming in like you would with your lens, but I'm magnifying in on my focal point. So in this instance, I want to focus on the rocks down in the foreground. I will press OK, and that is a 100% zoom. And then I will use the back button focus to focus, or sometimes I will even override it and use manual focus straight from the lens. And either or really, and the whole point in this is that I can see, again, whether through the viewfinder or on the LCD screen on the back, so far magnified in, I can see if it snaps into focus, and I can tell then that that focal point is absolutely perfect, thus giving me a really sharp photograph every single time. This has worked for me for years. And I think what I'd call this technique is belts and braces, really, because, you know, yes, I could just press the back button, press the focus button, and it focuses, but because I'm magnifying in so far, right on the focal point, exactly where I want, you know, the photograph to be at its sharpest, it's like a backup, a fail-safe. I can see with my own eyes that it's, like I said before, snapping into focus. And I just think that that is so important. Yes, I guess nowadays you wouldn't have to do the magnify, you could just rely on the autofocus on modern cameras. But for me, I don't like to do that. And then probably even more than belts and braces, I wonder if there's like a third thing you could say. Belts, braces, and I don't know, somebody comment below. But yeah, the third thing for the belts and braces would be, like I mentioned before, this is so important, it's just to double check the preview of your photograph. Again, magnify in and just, well, triple check that it's definitely in focus. All of these things are so important, man. It sounds fussy, it sounds faffy and pedantic, but you do not want to get home with a blurry photograph. So also important. If you want to see this technique a little bit more in depth, I'll pop a little link up there, because I've talked about this before and I absolutely love it. So yeah, unfortunately, as I feared, oh wow, honestly, Beacon Tarn is so still. He is like one giant sheet of glass just breaking up this landscape. It is just so beautiful to look at. Honestly, there's just not a breath of wind in the air. It's a very precious evening. We don't have too many like this in the Lake District, especially this time of year, you know. But unfortunately, exactly what I thought was going to happen has happened. There's just a sort of low bank of cloud on the horizon. The sun's gone behind it way before sunset, and that's it. The light's gone, the colour's been snuffed out and everything. However, I'm glad I managed to get that final photograph, which I'll show you in a second. I just need to figure out how to get down to that path just down there, that green one. I think we need to go around. We go around here? Yeah, this looks all right. There we go, we're on the path. Now, yeah, just before I show you that image, I just wanted to say to you another massive thank you for your support, for all of you that watch me every week or every day at the minute. I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. And like I said, if you'd like to consider subscribing, there's plenty more of these little photography adventures to come, and I am having an absolute ball. But I hope you enjoyed the tips in today's video. I hope you enjoyed this last photograph, and if there's any more tips that you can think of to help other people, to help other photographers to try and get sharp photographs, please do comment below. I've probably missed loads. But yeah, thanks again, and I shall see you on the next adventure. Out.